Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we'll be talking about variables and how to use them in Roblox. So I'll go over this with Python as well as Lua, which is used in Roblox. And the reason for this is so we can compare how they work and see the similarities. If you know Python, it's going to be very easy to do variables in Lua. Just add local in front of everything. And yeah, there's no typesetting for those that do know what that means. But for now, let's just go ahead and set some variables up. So before I do anything in Python, we need a script in Roblox so we can test the same thing. Under our server script service, let's add a script. We won't be using a local script because that's going to run on the client. And this isn't actually on the client anyways, so it won't even run. So for now, we'll just keep this print hello world here. And if we try and run the game, it will print the hello world. So that's just going to output it to our output. For those that don't have output open, click the view tab at the top here, and then click output and make sure it's open. You don't need command bar. I usually have it open, but I'll close that for now. But here we can find our script, which will output stuff that we'll be testing. So to begin, how do we do variables in Python? Python's a little bit easier than Roblox here. It's very straightforward. So when we want a variable in Python, we say the variable name equals some value. So in this case, this is a string. You can have spaces if you want. I'm just doing that because whatever. So if I press enter there, it's added the variable to the Python's environment. So it's stored in memory. So now if I try print variable name, it will have stored this is a string in the variable name. We can also edit this variable by overriding the variable name with something else. So if I override variable name with 123, 123, and I print variable name again, it will output 123, 123 because it's overridden the variable name with another thing. So how does this differ from Roblox? Well, let's have a look, shall we? So if I do variable name equals what was it? This is a string, and we're going to print the variable name, and we run that. It's going to work. It's the exact same. And then if I override the name again, 123, 123, and I print it again, firstly, we're going to have this is a string because we set it to that. So right here. Then we output the variable name, then we change it, and then we output it again. So it's going to change, it will change once from this is a string, and then it will output it twice. So before and after we change it. So from that, we have seen that it's extremely similar. It works very well. There's one difference though. We have scopes in Lua. It's in Python too, but it's a little bit different in how it works in Lua. So let's have a look at the keyword local. So if I add local in front of this, it's fine, it's working. If I run the game, it acts the same. But this changes how this variable works. So let's make a quick function. You don't have to worry about how functions work. Function, call me. So this is going to be storing a block of code which we can call. So if I put this inside here, I'm going to remove the local for the moment. And I'm going to do this right here. Let's actually move that out here. So this is a little bit funky right now. So we've got the variable name equals some value inside the function, which we're calling here. Then we're going to print the variable name, and then we'll change it and we'll print it again. So if I call this, it will work. But if I add local in front of this, and I try to run it again, it's going to print nil because the value is nothing. So local changes how the variable scopes in the script, how the scope changes in the scope. So what do I mean by scope? So scope is, let's say I'm inside this function. So this is the current line of code that I'm on. What I can see variable-wise is everything that's above the function and everything that's being passed through the function here, which are arguments. So since I've set it as local, I can only see what's above me in the outside scope, or what's above me in terms of this inner scope. So everything that's here. So this other variable isn't visible from the outside, but it's visible from the inside here. So if I print variable name, and I print other variable, so if I do both of these here actually, you can see now that other variable is underlined red, and that's because unknown global. It's in the scope of the function, it's not in the scope of the script. If I move this out here, since it's local to the entire script, everything can see it that's below it. Also, if I move this to the bottom of the script, it's still local to the script that's everything below it. But if I change it to that, now it's assuming the variable exists, but because of the way that the code is called in order, so it goes from top to bottom, so it will create the function, and then it will call the function immediately. It doesn't have time to set the variable yet. It will call the function first, do these other bits of code, and then come back, and then set the other variable to 1. So if I put this print down here now, and I run the game again, and I print, you can see now it's working. We'll get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, we've also got 1. So 1 is our other variable, which we just set. However, if we look at what line is it? Line 10. So this one right here. It's still printing nil because we haven't set the variable anywhere else above that print to equal some value. So scopes are very important. And it's also important that you don't accidentally override, or it would actually be the term hiding a variable under another variable. So this is not a string. So let's say we have this. Let me just clear all this, and we'll call this one here. So we have a problem here. We have 2 local sets. So, well, we're setting the variable twice, but we're both having locals. So how this works is this one's going to be global for everything in the script. So this one here will output this one. When we call me, this local will be only visible for everything below here inside the function. And then when we come back out here, since that one's only for everything inside the function, it doesn't actually edit the one up here. So this one will stay as this is not a string. So if I play this, we have this is not a string, this is a string, this is not a string. If I remove the local from inside the function here though, it changes the one on the outside. So you have the first print, which is before the call, this is not a string. Then after it's been called, it will change the string, print it, and then print it again. So you can see script 6, script 11. So that is the line number here. And then let's actually reverse this. So what if this one is a global variable? So not local based, not local scope based. And this one's a local one. Let's try it. It does the same thing. Since this one's for everything inside the script, it prints it here. But because this one's local to the function, it only it sets it to this is a string for everything inside this function that's below it. And actually, if I print this up here, this one will be this is not a string, but this one, this bottom print here, will be this is a string. So if I just try that quickly, you'll see this is not a string, this is not a string, set it to this is a string, so a shadow variable, and then print that this is a string, and then this is not a string. So scoping is pretty important. When we go coding wise, I'll show you, or actually I'll force some issues where we have variables shadowing each other. So in this case, let's say we want to access this variable name up here. We can't because we've named it the same thing here. But if I change the name here to 2, so just add a 2 on the end, it's a different variable now. So we should have this is not a string, this is not a string, this is a string, this is not a string. And actually, if I print it like that, so if you add a comma here, let's say add multiple arguments to print. So they'll print in one line. You can see now, because we've changed the variable name, it's stored under a different name. and it will allow you to print the global one up here as well as the local one in here. So this is why having variable names be something that's like actually related to what the variable is. So like, let's say if the variable is a player, you want to name the variable player and not something like variable. Because if you name everything variable, then it's going to start shadowing each other, and you're just going to have these errors where you can't print out certain values, or you can't access properties of certain values and all that. We won't worry about that too much. Hopefully you understood some of it. If you can understand some of this, then you'll be fine. It comes with experience and all of that. But for now, that's like the basics of variables. There's different types of variables you can have. So we can have like a bool value equals true. So that's a Boolean variable. So Booleans are true or false. You can have number or integer values. So integer are whole numbers. And then you can have decimal values. Decimals equals decimal numbers, which are also called floats, doubles, in other programming languages. So if I do print type, let's see what that is. That's class float. So that's a floating number precision point, or floating precision point number. In Roblox, it's actually not called decimal numbers. It's called number value. So, it's called number, and then you got integer. So integers, whole numbers. Number is the equivalent of decimals, floats, doubles. You've also got string values, which we've been testing. So that's a string variable. Well, it's got a string value for the variable. And as a matter of fact, if you just saw, I printed the type of the variable. We can do the same here. We can print type bool value. If we run this, it'll print the type Boolean because it's a bool value. And we can do that for all of these. Let's just make sure I've got enough. So we'll print the bool value type, which is Boolean. We've seen that. We'll print the int value type, the number value type, and the string value type. So if I play that, we'll see we've got Boolean, number, string. The integer goes under number. However, there is things called int values and number values. That's why I'm trying to keep them separate, so you know that number value refers to supporting decimal numbers. So if I put 5 point blah blah blah, you can see it supports number or decimal values. If I get a int value and I try to do that, however, unable to cast string to int 64. So I just put it as a string. If I do that, it lets me set it. Actually, that's a really weird bug. That shouldn't... Okay, whatever. That's not meant to set it like that. It's supposed to auto round it to the nearest number, but apparently Roblox changed it. Unless that's scripting wise, but we'll test it out later. But yeah, we can print the type. I also used type of there. Let me use type. I believe... No, that'd still be the same. So we've got Boolean, number, string. Difference between type and type of is when you use type of, if it's a instance, it will use the instance's class. So if I click, let's say players here, this players object has a class of players. So class name is players. It has methods or functions that are specific to this players class only. That's object-oriented programming. We'll go into that later. It's a little bit advanced now, so we'll come back to variables since it's nice and easy. We can do the same thing in Python also. We can do the exact same here. So if I do variable name equals 1.234, we can print type variable name. It's a float. We can change variable name to a whole number. Print that. It's a int. So that's what I mean by the number here is the same as decimals, floats, or doubles. We can also do, if I set that to true, Oh, sorry, yeah, capital T for true. If I print the type of that, it's a bool, which is short for boolean. And if I do a string, if I do a string and then print the type of it, it's a string. So str is just short for string. So you can see Python and Lua are pretty much very much the same. It's more that you have doubles, floats, and actually it's just doubles and floats. But they do work differently, so it's important that you change the types. I won't go into it though. You can have a look at Python tutorials and all that for that. But generally, Roblox makes it very easy to work with decimal numbers because it's just under one thing, which is number. But yeah, hopefully you've learned quite a bit about variables here. That's generally all variables are. It's just having a variable name that stores a certain value. So in our case, the string value stores the string epic word. Number value stores the number 1.534 blah blah blah. The int value stores 1. The bool value stores true. And then we can print those types of variables to see what they are. And we can just print the values directly too. But yeah, hopefully you know what variables are now. The next video will be going through loops. So we'll be using variables to do loops. And we will maybe have a look at how we can edit some parts with the loops to get them to like do rainbow colors or something like that. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video.